And then when people do talk about it, which I guess is probably a decent segue onto the next one, which is when people just mention the fact that journalists are being killed.
Every single day, and it's really hard to, not every single day, every single stream. And it's really hard to not get repetitive, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like the Israelis should be getting more original with this stuff. They shouldn't put it all on the content creators to try to put a fresh new spin on what they're doing. They should try something new.
What do? They killed another...
They killed another journalist. There's a video of it as well. We're not going to be showing.
It's horrible.
Coming expanded Grand Invasion, Khan Yunis.
It was just amazing that they're doing...
Shooting her in the back.
So all this stuff is going on as the ceasefire talks are happening. And I can't help but wonder, it's like, is this kind of part of the negotiation strategy of like, you kind of like, you ramp it up as you're negotiating. But of course, the other side can't do that either. Although Hezbollah is ramping things up, but it's just like, yeah.
It's so insane. Also, how are you meant to be... How are they doing negotiations with Yahya Sinwar?
Yeah.
He's like hiding because they're trying to shoot him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think that exactly. I don't think anyone actually wants a ceasefire, except maybe the Americans, and they don't want it badly enough to actually do anything about it. So just talk about it while everything keeps going on. But then did we move on to the next one now? So it's just like, so I guess
I was going to talk about more in general about how often they kill journalists. I don't know what the
138 journalists have now died in this
recent
conflict since October 7.
Yeah.
Something like 90 of those are Palestinian. Got a few Lebanese, some Israeli journalists as well. And it's like, there's something like that. The percentage of journalists who have been killed is higher than the broader population. Of those been killed. So they're targeting them. They're targeting them.
It's so nuts. I remember it's so weird with Israeli aggression in Palestine. It's just like at the start of the invasion, it was like shocking. It was horrible. Like you feel like a husk of a person. Like I'm on Twitter and all I'm seeing is dead babies. Like I'm on Twitter before bed and I go to sleep with like dead children. I wake up with dead children, and like I feel like you slowly get desensitized. And I feel like there's every now and then there's like a little thing that really kind of triggers you and like brings you back into those first days of the conflict. And like one of them for me was watching, I forgot who he was, which I think it was another Al Jazeera journalist finding out live on air that his whole family had been killed. Like there was like these special, these like, how do I say special? But yeah, these little moments that just like completely rock your world. You're
they remind you that this is not just like nature ticking on as per usual. This is actually horrific.
Yeah. Yeah.
What annoys me so much is just like all of us, we all hear about this stuff through the media, and you'd think that the journalists talking about it would have some sort of emotive response to hearing about other journalists being targeted and killed, and just the cowardice of so many of them to just call out the fact that
a bullet had found them from...
the way that the journalists themselves are writing about other journalists being killed in this soft, neutral language.
But I also think the reason they're doing that is because they're not the same. They know that they're not going to be in that position because they're never actually going to question power.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. They know they're safe. They know they're not going to get shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Is Australian coverage better than the American? I would say it's probably worse.
Yeah.
The Australian news is such a monopoly. And all the alternative ones are kind of, not the alternative ones, but the ones that aren't the big Murdoch-owned news sites, I'd say they're terrified of the Murdoch-owned newspapers, so they don't say anything really out of line.
Yeah, I mean, when was what is it, Shireen Abu Akleh? What was her name? The Palestinian journalist who was shot, and then at her funeral, the police raided her funeral. You remember her?
Yeah, I do.
And this is not, she wasn't shot during, because everything started on October 7th. Somehow she was shot before that.
Janine. She was in the West Bank.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. Like, it's just pretending that this war was started by Hamas.
Yeah,
They've been fucking murdering.
US citizen as well.
Yeah. No one gives a shit. No, I mean, they didn't do anything.
What?
The US.
And then when people do talk about it, which I guess is probably a decent segue onto the next one, which is when people just mention the fact that journalists are being killed, they lose their jobs.
This is the craziest story.
So this is down in Melbourne. There was this pianist, Jason Gillum. Apparently he's a really big deal. I don't follow the classical music scene, but apparently he's a really big deal. Australian English pianist. And he played a song which was written by another composer, and that song was called Witness. And the song was composed and dedicated to the journalists who have lost their lives. And as he's playing his concert, before he plays that song, which he previously asked, can I play this song? And they said yes.
Well, they commissioned him to do it.
No, they didn't commission him. The song was commissioned for that, but he went out and chose this song. Before he played that song, he read out this statement.
Over the last 10 months, Israel has killed more than 100 Palestinian journalists. A number of these have been targeted assassinations of prominent journalists as they were traveling in marked press vehicles or wearing their press jackets. The killing of journalists is a war crime in international law, and it is done in an effort to prevent the documentation and broadcasting of war crimes to the world. In addition to the role of journalists who bear witness, the word witness in Arabic is shaheed, which also means martyr.
Then he played the song, and a bunch of people complained, mostly donors. They pulled out money, and then the MSO, the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, cancelled his upcoming gigs. And yeah, so that's what happens if you...
That's the end of a career.
Just mentioning the fact that...
And it's not like a contentious thing. It's like these people have been killed. Like this is true.
Yeah,
like he's not speculating.
But it's also like Amnesty and very, very accepted center kind of organizations are saying the same thing. And you're just not even allowed to mention it.
I think it's just very funny because like what's the actual Melbourne Symphony Orchestra approved this.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best part. If they were like, go ahead, like this is really cool. Do this thing with like a humanitarian twist to it, like whatever. And then they turn around and like, oh no, actually you're a disgrace. This is disgusting. We don't stand for this. And it's just like, well, no, you don't stand for losing money. That's the only thing you don't.
And then subsequently, they put out this statement saying it was not an approved statement. Blah blah blah. It needs to be a safe space for all people coming. And then
it needs to be a safe space for people who want to kill journalists.
Yeah,
they're feeling targeted here.
And then other musicians have said that they're not going to play at the hall anymore. Everyone's favorite Cat Empire said that they're not going to play. And then other musicians... Because they've fired. Because they cancelled his contract. And then the staff at MSO also did a vote of no confidence ahead. And now they've come out and said it was a mistake to cancel his contract. So it's like...
Well, man, it's so funny that's like... That's what it takes to like reverse one of these decisions. It's like every single famous person and every worker being like, fuck you.
What I find interesting about it, though, is just it's so obvious that was going to be the response. And then they still fired him in the first place. So it kind of shows the panic at which they respond to donors pulling out money.
Yeah.
The donors pull out money. They don't go, how should we respond? What will happen? They just go, oh, God, okay. He's never performing again. He's never performing again.
Give him the money. Today they shot her in the back. Yeah, this is what we're covering here. We can't show the video, but yeah, it's so fucked. It's just like there is literally no room to talk about this stuff anywhere.
Yeah.